Hi, this is Dave. I'm here with Jeff. This is my second episode of my podcast. This week we're going to talk about military veterans and how to get clean if you're a military veteran. Jeff has a very compelling story. So, with no further ado, Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd and I'll sit back?
My name is Jeff, and I am a recovering addict.
Hi, Jeff.
How you doing? If I'm not mistaken, this is the part where I'm supposed to speak about myself. And so I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and where I'm from. So I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
From northeast part of Philadelphia. Um, you know, like I said, to you earlier when we were talking, I wouldn't trade my time, my days, my youth on the streets of Philadelphia. I mean, I feel blessed that I had the opportunity to do that before I moved up to the suburbs where we really don't even have walkways. We have grass, lots of grass.
Right.
So
So your childhood was happy.
it was, yeah, it was.
So let's walk into let's get into the when did you first start using drugs?
I first started using drugs. You know what? It was the first thing I ever used was alcohol. I was about 12 or 13 years old. From the first time I ever used, I got completely drunk, sick. I remember my friends. Oh, I remember falling in the door. And the story goes, the myth, the urban legend goes, they put me in between. My dad was having a dinner party. They put me in between the screen door and the storm door. They rang the bell, they knocked, and they ran. Supposedly, dad opens up the door. Jeff falls onto the floor. He's totally smashed drunk off the half gallon of vodka the local guy who bought booze for everybody got for us. And that began what I would consider to be a 10-year run with a pretty serious addiction.
Okay. So here you're having some bad experience, but you're still a kid. When do you first realize you have a problem with drugs?
I was a smart kid, and I cut high school to use different various drugs. Like
Right.
the alcohol graduated, like it was marijuana, and then I remember snorting lines of they used to call crank or methamphetamine.
Gotcha.
Then it was powder cocaine, and then 1987 or 88, I was still playing ball. I'm hiding that from a lot of people. Like we all did it, but we weren't addicted to any of that stuff. We were weekend warriors with the powder cocaine and all that stuff, and we weren't using every night. We smoked weed almost every night. But I got hurt playing ball to the point where my shin bones came right out the side of my leg. A guy slid into me. My bones came outside of my leg, and from that surgery, it was a very complicated break. I got, blood clots and bone infections, and everyone was an operation. This went on for about 2.5 years, and the doctors just kept feeding me Percocets. They weren't out.
Sure.
And at the height of my addiction, if I fast forward through everything just real quick, I was eating 120 Percocets a day.
Okay, so you definitely know you have a problem.
Yes.
Are you stealing at this point? You don't have to.
Stealing pills.
Yeah. Just so people know, it's not a requirement to have to steal.
Yes.
But with Jeff, I'm just trying to put.
Yeah, so at a young age, I started the old, can I use your bathroom thing?
Right.
I'm checking the bathroom, and then I'm checking the kitchen cabinets where everybody keeps their drugs. And it's that kind of stealing.
Right.
It wasn't the stealing for money yet until I really
Right,
progressed.
but we have a term called doctor shopping. At this point, you're doctor shopping.
Yes.
So doctor shopping, for people that don't know, is Jeff's going to different doctors with different ailments, sometimes real, sometimes made up.
Yep.
Most of the time made up, just trying to get as many pills as he can.
Correct.
So tell me what happens next.
So
You have this problem, and
my father gave me my first shot at rehab up in the far northeast section of Philadelphia.
Right.
So it was really the only rehab that we all knew, but the only decent one you probably know too. And we all been through there, and I got out. And I still really I wasn't listening to anything they were talking about, steps or whatever. I just wanted to go in there to get my dad off my back, and like most of us, and to get everybody. Look, I didn't think I was an addict. I think I had a problem, but I still thought I could stop. I just didn't know the disease of addiction and what it meant yet. I was very, very young, and I think I was going to have to go through what I went through to make that decision on my own.
How'd you feel in rehab? Did you feel like different? Did anything make sense at this point? Are you starting to figure out anything, or are you just like complete denial?
I'm in,
What's your mindset at
I'm
this
in,
point?
at 18, 19 years old, I'm in complete denial.
Mm.
But I remember my father came up on a visit, with a trash bag, a tall kitchen trash bag full of pill bottles.
Right.
Dumped them all out on the
Mm.
table during a session one-on-one with my counselor. And he said, "You're going to tell me you don't have a problem?" And I looked at them all, and that was the first time I thought, maybe I got a problem.
So where do we go from there? So maybe you have a problem. How long does that last in your mind?
The maybe I got a problem. I got out of there. I had to go to outpatient rehab, which I did. I hated it.
Still in denial?
Still in a little bit of denial because yeah, still in denial because I'm not doing anything like they tell you to do. Some 12-step fellowship meetings and things like that. I'm doing none of that follow-up stuff. Only when my dad's looking, but when no one's looking,
Going
I'm
through
not
the
doing anything.
motions.
Yeah.
But we like to say in recovery that the seed was planted. So basically, you knew that there was something different, that you have a problem. But at 18, 19 years old, from what you're telling me, you didn't care.
No, and that led to my father having to make a really rough decision. And to this day, I don't think any of my friends that I know, I was the only one that I know who got kicked out of their house. I mean, that
Back
just
then.
didn't happen back
Right.
then,
Got you.
you know?
So
And
what do? You get kicked out of your house, you still have a problem. Are you using?
I am what they call couch surfing.
Okay.
You know, I'm going from friend to friend. And then I
You,
just had the genius idea of even my grandmother, and until I stole her credit card.
right.
You know, even my own grandmother, who I love dearly. It
Right.
didn't matter. It just, like, nothing was sacred anymore at one point, you know? So I had the bright idea to go into the military.
Okay.
I was just thinking that, not only a geographical change, but a change of like drastic measures where I'm going to have like these people breathing down my neck, that there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to get drugs.
You're telling me you go to the military to run away.
Yeah.
So you get to the military, and what we've talked about before is you have to take a test to get into the military. And what you had told me is one of the questions is, do you use drugs?
Yes.
And you have this problem, and you're in basic training. Is that right?
Yeah. I
Where
mean,
are you?
it starts off at basic training. I was down in San Antonio, Texas at Lackland Air Force Base.
Are you using?
No,
Okay, you're completely clean.
completely clean
Are you
because
getting drug tested, Jeff?
no,
No,
there's just
no
absolutely
drugs.
no way to get anything down. Where Lackland's at, there's nothing. It's a dry base. You're not getting
You
anything.
just weren't using. It wasn't like you were trying to apply any of the stuff that you learned in treatment. You just weren't using because you couldn't use.
Correct.
Okay, so you get out of basic training. What happens?
I go to tech school.
Okay, tell me about tech school.
Tech school's a little different.
Okay,
Tech school is different in that it's more like a traditional base with a PX and a enlisted club and booze and partying every weekend, and I was the master. It wasn't long before I was the guy. But I spent the majority of my time at that PX across the street, like every day after work, after school. I'd go over there and kill a 6-pack and go home and go to bed. And I was the only, like, thinking about it now in hindsight,
mm,
there was probably 500 students on that campus, maybe more. And I can't ever remember seeing anybody, the same person there with me twice, but I was there every night.
okay. So the using starting again. It's just drinking, which is using, and you're drinking. You're not drinking a beer and leaving. You're drinking to get drunk, and that's it. It's nighttime. Not anything during the day. You hiding booze. Anything going on there?
No, I remember there was one time where the squadron got shut down. They would do that if everybody was acting up, or we failed an inspection or something.
Right.
They would lock us down for a day or for two
Right.
days, and I made sure that I had a 6-pack, for the lockdown. And I remember the commander, who I remember I told you I ended up working there because of my admin hold.
Right.
Um, he saw it.
Right.
There's no way he didn't say it, but he didn't say anything.
Right. Okay. So tell me about what happens the next. So you're in tech school, and I think we had talked about it before. You got hurt
Yeah.
playing sports.
Yeah, I that's how it started. I got hurt playing sports, like I had already said, and that's how my addiction started. But how it got started in the
Yeah,
military,
that's where I'm going.
and I didn't know this, is that they pull your wisdom teeth, and I never saw it coming. When I went over for the meeting, and they told me why they even called me to the infirmary, when they told me the protocol and what was going to happen, and that I was going to get a script for 30 Percocets to go home with, I'm all in now. Like my antennas went up, and I'm like really curious, but I'm also a little scared, Dave. I'm not going to
Yeah,
lie, and I haven't even identified myself as an addict yet, but I was a little scared.
right. Because you knew it was coming, right?
Yeah, I did.
You saw your history has already show you what's going to happen to you. So now here you are running away from your problems, and guess what? The problem's still there.
Yeah.
So what I'm assuming from here the Percocets get out of control.
Yeah, I mean, I went back once, twice, three times. The third time, he was starting to get on to me, and he said, "This is probably the last time I'm going to be able to give you."
And how did
So,
you feel when you said that?
oh, I thought to myself, no, it's not the last time because I'm going to steal your script pad,
Right.
which I did, and it was pre-stamped and pre-filled in. So I was going to the infirmary, and the pharmacists were starting to catch on. So I started enlisting other airmen to get them for me,
Okay.
which was crazy. When it all came out, it was either Jeff tells the truth or all six airmen are going to the brig.
So what? Tell me what happens. What do you mean? Where are you going? What do you mean? So is there consequences? I think you had told me that.
Yeah, so they gave it's called Article 15.
Hmm.
Um, they came and got me. I was, by this time I'm out of tech school. I'm at my first assignment in Barksdale, Louisiana, one state over. I got to do a lot of traveling when I was in the military. I just went from Texas to
Right.
Louisiana.
Right.
But anyway, sitting at my desk, two MPs come walking down the aisle, and my heart dropped because I knew they were coming for me.
The gig was up.
The gig was up. They came for me. They got me. They took me right to the brig, and I said, "Why am I here?" And they said, "Do we really have to go through this, or should we bring the six airmen in?"
Right.
I said, "No, there's no need. I know what you're talking about." And then the lawyer came to see me, asked me if I ever had done Percocets before. I lied to him. I said no. He then defended me accordingly, and I'm not proud of it, but he got me out of that mess. I was separated from the military with what they call like an other than honorable discharge. It's like a discharge that has no meaning to it. It's almost like you weren't in, but you were, kind of a thing.
Okay. So tell me about the back then in the military when you were there. Did you ever think? Were there any resources back then to ask for help? Did you ever think about asking for help?
Well, no, because you're too afraid.
Okay.
No, I did know there was a psychiatrist and a psychologist that anybody could go see.
Right.
But as far as addictions
You,
treatment or anything like
back
that,
there was
no meetings or
no,
anything like that on
nothing
base.
back then.
No,
Okay. All
no.
right. Maybe it's different now, which we'll get into a little later. But so anyway, so you get out of the military and tell me obviously your problem was you were using in the military, you lied, and here you are, you're out. What happens?
Well, believe it or not, um, I'm just trying to remember the story because somehow they ended up flying me to McGuire Air Force Base as part of this whole separation process. They flew me to McGuire Air Force Base over in New Jersey,
Mhm.
and they medically detoxed me, which leads me to believe that when I came home, somehow I was using again, and I'm trying to remember how I even got those benefits to go into McGuire.
Right.
I think when I got separated, I had them for a period of time,
Right.
and they knew where to find me. A family member had told them where I was staying. Um, uh, just a couple guys. It wasn't MPs, but a couple guys from McGuire Air Force guys came, and they were talking to me. They asked me if I wanted to go. I did. They detoxed me, and then they sent me up to Coatesville VA Medical Center in Pennsylvania, which is basically like a mental health, drug and alcohol, PTSD, traumatic brain injury type hospital. It's not a surgical center. It's more for mental health issues. Yeah, I did a 28-day stay. After when I was done, I was pretty much homeless.
Okay.
That's when everybody knew that I had been lying. I really didn't tell anybody that I even got, discharged or separated. I just came back to Philly with some, bull crap story that they let me out early, and nobody
Right.
was buying
Right.
that. Everybody knew by at that time. So everybody said no, no dice, no dice. And our friend had a recovery house in Frankfurt. I called up and just said, "Hey, somebody gave me your number. I don't know what you do. I just know that you help people who are just got clean and need a place to stay. I don't have no money. I don't, this, that, and the other." And they gave me a shot. They brought me in there with no money and helped me get a job. And
So you get clean. Congratulations on that. And then you somehow start to get involved with working. When you get clean, do you think to yourself, maybe I could help veterans now?
not right away. So
Well,
I
take me
got
to
clean,
that.
and I went to recovery house, and I'm still young, and I used a couple times
Right.
because again, I was not buying into the 12-step fellowship, which one you want to call it or whatever. I wasn't looking at the stuff on the wall. I was trying to just go to meetings and fellowship with people and not really work the program or the steps. I wasn't changing. I still had those feelings about myself,
Right.
still felt different,
Right.
and I wasn't really addressing that. I was just kind of,
So tell me about the bottom. What happens
the bottom
when you
was,
decide that you got to get help and
uh,
you're going to try?
I remember picking up a phone at Margaret and Orthodox underneath the L train. I had just gotten kicked out of Danny's for the second or third time. And I picked up the phone and I'm holding the phone. It's 98 and nobody in the world cared.
Right.
Mom, dad,
Right.
they
Everybody's
cared,
done.
but
Everybody's done.
yeah,
Tough love.
I had nobody to call. Not a rehab,
Yeah.
nobody. So I went out. There was one aunt, my mom's sister, who let me go out to Urbana, Ohio. I was out there for about a month, and I cut a hole in the pharmacy roof. It was at farming town with one pharmacy, one doctor. Come on, they know who did it, right? I cut a hole in the roof. I go down, I take the opiates. They find out I'm on a bus back here. I called my PO and said I'm going into Kensington detox. I detoxed again, and this time I went to a real recovery. Like, not that it wasn't,
Right.
but I went to a strict one called Fresh Start,
Right.
and that was my introduction to
Did you
Fresh
get
Start.
to a fresh start because you were a veteran or?
No, they weren't working with vets yet.
Okay.
I just went there because it was city funded,
Mhm.
and they were working with people who were on probation and stuff like that. And I had committed some misdemeanors and this, that, and the other, and I had a probation officer, and they let me go there to Fresh Start. They paid the bill, but I also they why I was there. That's where I had what you want to call a spiritual awakening or whatever we like to call them. I remember it was a Monday night football game, and I was always a guy, Dave, who would take the easy way out. I was always a guy that could talk. I was smart enough to talk and tell you what you wanted to hear so that you believed my nonsense, and I got what I wanted. I went to several rehabs and just told everybody what they wanted to hear, and I was starting to learn how to speak recovery speak, and everybody was buying what I was selling. I was like a normal looking kid. So I go to Fresh Start, and it was a Monday night, and the house manager says you could stay in. It was snowing badly,
Gotcha.
and he says you could go to a meeting or you could stay in and watch the football game. You don't have to go out in the snow. And I said I want to go to a meeting.
And that was it.
Yeah, I remember I walked across the street and I was waiting for I was standing on that corner, but I was remember looking in to the recovery house where there was people, walking past the window, and they were making hot pockets and pizzas, get ready for the game. And I'm standing out there freezing, waiting to go to a meeting. And I remember thinking that was the first time I sacrificed what I wanted to do for what I had to do.
Gotcha.
And it felt good.
Yeah. Okay. So you get clean, you start to feel better, you get sober, and then tell me about how you get involved with Fresh Start.
So when I did that, I wanted, that move where I went to a meeting. I started doing more of that. And when you're doing that kind of stuff when you're sacrificing, you're doing those kinds of things in a recovery setting, the powers to be or the people who are in charge notice that, right? And they did. And one thing led to another, and I wound up getting a job I was working the weekend third shift, and I was just like a tech. And I just made sure everybody was home. I would look in the rooms, account everybody was in bed. And that's how my career started.
Okay, so let's progress in the career. You're clean.
Yep.
You're doing well.
Yep.
And you decide to, at this point, do you decide to start to work with veterans? Where are
So I
you in the story?
So the owner of Fresh Start, John Walls, we were out. It was election time, and John was supporting a couple politicians, and he would have us go out and deliver flyers and stuff. So certain people got elected, whatever. And I'm in the car with him, and he says, "Pittner, I hear you're a veteran." And I said, "Yeah, I am, but this is the story. I'm not the best veteran in the world, but I have experience, yes." And he said, "I've been trying to get a contract with the VA, but haven't been able to do it." He said, "But I'm working with the Treatment Research Institute, which is hooked up with the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and they're working on this assessment tool, and I forget what it was called, the AST or something like that. Wound up being the old PCPC, but he said, 'Would you go down and represent us and be a part of this?' And I said, 'I would.' So I go down there and I'm sitting there, and there's a gentleman, and we started talking, and he was from the VA, and his name was Vince Kane. Vince was a social worker to Philly VA at the time, but he went on to become at the national level at the VA. He started the Veterans Center on the National Center on Homelessness and a couple other very, very big national programs. But Vince and I started talking. He said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said what I did. And he said, "You know what? That housing model sounds like exactly what I need." And he said, "Do you think it would work for veterans?" I said, "To scale, like just all veterans?" I said that I don't think they're equipped for that. That's a whole different population. He said, "How about 4 or 5 beds? Just layer them on top of the existing." I said, "Yeah, that would work." Next thing you know, he calls Johnny and they talked and they gave Fresh Start their first 4 beds for veterans. And if you want to fast forward and hit the tapes, John passed away. I kept going to school. I got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, end up owning that company all these years later and parlayed those 4 beds for veterans into over 200 and became the biggest transitional housing provider for veterans who are addicted and homeless in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
So yeah, that's great, Jeff. I think that's pretty amazing accomplishment. Tell me about veterans. Your career. You were the CEO. You worked your way up. Tell me about working with veterans. What do you think that for veterans, one of the hardest things in your experience to get clean and stop using drugs? If they know they have a problem, what do you think one of the hardest things for them, challenges?
There's quite a few, but there's a couple that stand out more than any other, and that is the what we'll call the dual diagnosis,
Right.
which is the PTSD. A lot of times, if it's a combat veteran, you're talking about some severe PTSD, and they're medicating that.
Okay.
They're using drugs to medicate. They don't want to think about having
Okay.
to shoot people and getting shot at and watch their buddies get.
Right.
And a lot of what we call comorbidity, which is also physical illness from not only being in combat but just being in the military, being around different chemicals, different fires, different munitions, touching different things, led to a lot of different things that have been proven. It's just a lot of different unique problems that the veteran population presents with that the civilian population does not present with.
Yeah. So I'm just a non-veteran. What's the difference between somebody like me going into treatment and a veteran going into treatment? What would you say the differences are?
Well, right away, you're going to have a little bit of probably, it depends, but veterans tend to be like men's men. There's a little bit of an ego issue there. There's a sense of entitlement. There's a sense of like, you know, you didn't serve. You don't know what I've been through. So, you're not going to take my pass or, you're not going to do this, that, or the other because, I did this, this, and this for my country. So there's kind of a little, like, we have a little bit of a sense of entitlement
Okay.
that the civilian
Female
population.
veterans also.
Yeah, oh,
Because
yeah.
you said men's men.
Yeah.
We want to.
And women's women.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point because one of the programs that I oversaw, we had female vets in that program, and some of them were tougher than some of the men. So
Right. I'm sure. So, what would you say a veteran? So let's talk about that. I'm a veteran. Let's say I'm a veteran right now,
yeah,
and I'm looking to get help.
yeah.
Tell me what's available.
Well, I can tell you we've come leaps and bounds in the last 25 years. From me having that conversation with Vince Kane, in 1998, I think it was, to where we are in 2025, there are probably 4 or 5 different ways to get funded. And we can literally now take a veteran, street homeless veteran who is street homeless, put him in a van, take him to a program, either VA or community based, have him stay in that program. He doesn't even have to, or he or she does not even want to, don't even have to be clean. Because we have harm reduction, the VA created what they call, they didn't create it, but they fund what they call a safe haven model, which is for people who are homeless and addicted who don't want to be clean yet, they're unsure, they're allowed to be living in this program, but they can't bring any drugs or alcohol or paraphernalia into the building. If they do, that's immediate discharge. But we can have somebody actively using. There's a pretty high success rate of getting them to stop and go to treatment. And then either through the VA, through the grant and per diem program, which is a housing program, or the healthcare to homeless veterans program, or the VA's substance abuse treatment programs, or the VA's HUD-VASH program, where they partnered with HUD to get housing vouchers. We can literally take somebody, and I can help somebody walk them through the whole continuum where we take them right off the street, bring them to a program, get them stabilized, get them into treatment, get them into short-term transitional housing, get them into long-term transitional housing, get them a job and or their VA benefits, and then get them an apartment.
Okay.
And then if they should relapse, there's a program to support them and keep their apartment paid for while they go to treatment.
Okay. Well, we're going to put information down in the comments to if you are a veteran looking for help. So we're about to close up here, and what I wanted to get to is if I'm a veteran sitting in my house right now and I have no hope, what do you want to tell me, Jeff?
I would call the VA hotline, but also because of what's called the VA Mission Act, or it started as Veterans Choice. It's the Mission Act, and under the Mission Act, you can call any community-based provider in the country and say that you're a veteran. And if there's, whether there's a VA around or not, that that program can help you. So you can either call the VA helpline, you can go to va.gov, and you can go on the VA hotline and talk to somebody there and get the specifics, or you can call any rehab in your vicinity, say you're a veteran, and they'll know what to do.
Right, but more importantly, I'm going to say it to you. I'm a veteran. Let's say I'm a veteran and I have no hope, Jeff. What are you personally going to tell me? What do you want to tell him or her?
I want to tell you that I'm a recovering veteran. I'm a recovering veteran that's been around and clean for a long time, and I've benefited greatly from just trusting the VA a little bit. There's a lot of veterans out there. We don't necessarily trust the VA. We've had a lot of bad experiences with some of the VAs around the country. I think I would tell them to let their guard down, give it another shot. Nobody has a crystal ball, and there's enough programs and enough beds out there where you don't even have to be clean. Like, just trust somebody. Trust somebody at the VA, make the call, and give it a shot. You don't know where you're going to end up.
And Jeff's saying that also not only from his own experience, but working in the field, seeing a lot of death, a
Yeah.
lot of people that could have made it and just didn't give it long enough. Jeff, in closing, is there anything you want to say?
I just want to, well, first of all, thank you
No, thank you.
for inviting me on and for doing this for people. It's my understanding that I think your idea is to not only just bring any ordinary Jane or Joe in recovery, but try to have somebody who has a little bit of a niche to try to help different populations. And I think it's great what you're doing. And I had walked away after COVID. I walked away. I didn't walk away. I mean, I let everybody know that I was leaving, but I just recently made the decision to get back in because I want to help these community-based non-VA providers start learning how to work with veterans.
Okay, and if you're interested in talking to Jeff about that, we're going to post his LinkedIn profile in the comments so you can get a hold of Jeff. And that's it.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you so much,
All right.
sir.